The twin moons of Oriel rose slowly above the horizon, painting the sky in soft silver light. The colony settlement lay quiet, its domes glowing gently in the evening. Humans had come to this distant planet only 20 years ago, learning to live side by side with the native people, the Lumeri. The Lumeri were a graceful race, tall and elegant with luminous patterns that shone faintly across their skin. Though different, they were peaceful and curious, and bonds of trust had grown between them and the settlers. Among the children of this colony was a boy named Aaron. He was small for his age, with restless eyes that always searched for new wonders. While the other children often played together, Aaron spent most of his time wandering near the river that separated the human settlement from the Lumeri village. It was there he first met Leora, a young Lumeri girl. She had soft blue markings along her arms that shimmered like water in sunlight, and a quiet smile that made Aaron feel at ease. Their first meeting had been simple. Aaron had dropped a toy into the river, and Leora, curious, had waded in to pick it up. She held it out with both hands, tilting her head. "You dropped this," she said in a soft voice. Aaron had blinked at her, surprised she spoke his language. Then he smiled, taking the toy back. "Thank you. I'm Aaron." "I am Leora," she replied. From that day, the two became inseparable. While others saw only differences, Aaron and Leora found joy in sharing stories. She taught him about the glowing flowers that bloomed only at night, and he told her about Earth, the world he had never seen but heard so much about from his parents. They would sit under the moons for hours, pointing at the stars, wondering what lay beyond. One evening, after a long day of playing near the crystal fields, Aaron and Leora sat quietly on a hill overlooking both the human domes and the Lumeri village. The night was calm and fireflies drifted around them. Aaron held a small stone in his hands, carving lines into it with a stick. "Why are you scratching the stone?" Leora asked. "I'm making a mark," he said. "So I remember today." She leaned closer, curious. "Why today?" Aaron hesitated. His young heart was filled with feelings he did not yet fully understand, but he knew one thing. Leora was special. More than a friend. More than someone to share games with. She was someone he wanted to keep by his side forever. So he looked up at her and said in a voice both shy and serious, "When I grow up, I will marry you." Leora's eyes widened. She had heard humans speak of marriage, a bond for life, but never expected such words from a boy. At first she laughed softly, thinking he was joking, but when she saw how determined his eyes were, her smile faded into something gentler. "You are only a child," she said kindly. "You do not know what the future will bring." "Maybe," Aaron admitted, gripping the stone tightly. "But I promise. When I grow up, I'll come back with a ring. You'll see." Leora tilted her head, the faint glow of her markings brightening slightly. To her people, promises were sacred. They believed words had power, and to vow something was to bind a piece of your spirit to it. She did not laugh again. Instead, she placed her hand lightly over his. "Then I will remember your words," she said. From that day, the promise lived between them like a secret flame. They continued to meet, sharing dreams and hopes, but both knew something deeper connected them now. Yet life in the colony was changing. Tensions between human settlers and rival alien groups began to rise. Rumors of conflict reached even their quiet corner of Oriel. Aaron's parents worried about safety, and one evening his father announced they would return to Earth. Aaron felt his world collapse. "But I don't want to leave," he cried. "What about Leora?" His father knelt beside him. "Sometimes we must go where it is safe, Aaron. You will make new friends on Earth." But Aaron did not want new friends. He wanted to keep the promise. The night before his departure, he ran to the hill where he and Leora had always sat. She was already there, as though waiting. The moons shone brightly, casting silver light over her features. "You are leaving," she said quietly. It was not a question. Aaron nodded, tears stinging his eyes. "My father says it's not safe here, but I'll come back. I swear I will." Leora's gaze was steady. "Your promise is heavy, Aaron. Will you still carry it when years have passed?" "Yes," he said fiercely, "I will. I'll grow up and I'll come back with a ring. I won't forget." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Leora reached into her satchel and pulled out a small crystal, faintly glowing. She pressed it into his palm. "Then take this," she said, "so you remember me even when you are far away." Aaron clutched the crystal tightly. "I'll never forget." The next day, the human ships rose into the sky, engines roaring. Leora stood among her people, watching the silver streaks vanish into the stars. She did not wave nor cry. She simply stood still, the memory of his words burning within her. Years passed, and the memory of Oriel never left Aaron's heart. On Earth he grew taller, stronger, and wiser. But whenever he looked up at the night sky, he thought of twin moons glowing over silver fields, and of a girl with luminous markings who had placed a crystal in his hand. The crystal never left him. He carried it through school, through training, and even when he joined the human defense fleet as a young pilot. Many teased him for keeping a glowing rock, but Aaron never explained. To him it was more than a crystal. It was a promise. While Aaron was learning the ways of ships and stars, the world of Oriel was changing too. Leora had grown into a graceful young woman, respected among her people for her kindness and wisdom. But the colony no longer lived in peace. Rival alien factions sought control of the rich crystal fields, and skirmishes often broke out near her village. The humans had withdrawn most of their settlers years ago, leaving only a few outposts behind. Without strong allies, the Lumeri faced growing danger. Still, Leora remembered the boy who once swore to return. Sometimes, when the nights were quiet, she would walk to the hill where they once sat, looking up at the stars. "Where are you now, Aaron?" she whispered to the sky. Far away, fate was stirring. Aaron's squadron was assigned to patrol near the outer colonies, including Oriel. When the name appeared on his orders, his heart raced. He could hardly believe it. After so many years, he was finally going back. On the journey, he sat alone in his small quarters, polishing something carefully hidden in a pouch. It was a ring, forged from rare earth steel and set with the very crystal Leora had given him. He had worked on it for months, shaping it in secret. It was not perfect, but it was his heart turned into metal. "When I grow up, I'll come back with a ring," he whispered to himself, remembering his younger voice. Now the moment was near. When Aaron's ship reached Oriel, he was shocked by what he saw. The once bright settlement was now quiet, scarred by signs of battle. Smoke rose from distant hills, and the lush crystal fields glowed faintly as though wounded. His commander ordered the squadron to secure the skies, for hostile raiders had been attacking villages. But Aaron's thoughts were not on orders alone. He searched the surface below, scanning for the familiar river, the glowing flowers, the hill where two children had once made a promise. The call for help came quickly. A Lumeri village was under attack. Raiders had landed with armed skiffs, forcing the villagers to flee. Without hesitation, Aaron volunteered to lead the mission. His commander hesitated but allowed it, trusting his determination. The battle was swift. Aaron's fighter cut through the raiders' crafts with sharp precision. His squadron followed, driving the enemies back into the sky. When the last skiff retreated, the village was safe. For now. Aaron landed his fighter on the edge of the settlement, his heart pounding. He stepped out, scanning the crowd of Lumeri who had gathered. Then he saw her, Leora. She stood among her people, taller now, her markings glowing faintly with the light of the moons. She was no longer the girl he remembered, but a woman, graceful and strong, and yet her eyes, those clear, gentle eyes, were the same. For a moment neither moved. The years between them seemed to fall away. Then Aaron walked forward, his hands trembling. "Leora," he said softly. She stared at him in disbelief. "Aaron?" Her voice broke slightly, as though the name carried both joy and pain. "It's me," he said. "I told you I would come back." For a heartbeat, she said nothing. Then slowly she stepped closer. I thought you might have forgotten." Aaron shook his head fiercely. "Never. I carried your crystal every day. It reminded me of you, of my promise." From the pouch at his side, he drew the small ring glinting under the moons. The crystal she had once given him was set in its center, glowing faintly as though alive. "I told you I'd come back with a ring," Aaron said, his voice steady despite the emotion surging within him. "And here it is." Leora's eyes filled with light, her markings shimmering brighter. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly as she touched the ring. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "I always would," he replied. The villagers around them watched silently. To the Lumeri, promises were sacred, and they understood the weight of what they were seeing. A human boy had grown into a man and crossed the stars to keep the words he once gave. But peace was not yet secure. The raiders would return stronger next time, Leora's people needed allies and humanity needed trust. Your people are in danger, Aaron said gently, his gaze never leaving hers. Let me stand with you. Let humans and Lumeri fight together. Maybe then there can be peace. Leora studied him. She saw the boy who once vowed with innocent eyes and the man who now stood with courage. Slowly she nodded. Then let us walk together, she said. As friends. And as more. Aaron slid the ring into her hand, as promised. The moons shone above them, silver light falling over the village. For the first time in many years, Leora felt hope, not just for herself but for her people. The boy had returned, and with him a new bond between two worlds had begun. The ring glowed faintly in Leora's hand as she stood before her people. The villagers had gathered around, whispering softly in their own language, their luminous markings flickering with emotion. To the Lumeri, a promise kept was no small thing. It was a living truth, stronger than fear, brighter than doubt. And here was Aaron, no longer the boy who once played by the river, but a man who had crossed the stars to return with a ring forged from two worlds. The crystal she had given him years ago had come back to her, shining brighter than before. Leora's heart swelled. She looked at him, his human face lit by the twin moons, his eyes steady and full of quiet strength. For a moment she remembered the night he had first spoken his promise, his small hands gripping a stone, his voice trembling yet determined. He had not changed. He had only grown into the man those words had always meant him to be, but danger still lingered. The very next morning, scouts reported that the raiders were gathering again. A fleet of ships had been sighted beyond the hills, preparing to strike harder than before. Fear rippled through the village. Some believed they should flee deeper into the forests, while others argued they should make a final stand. Leora stepped forward. We will not face this alone, she said firmly. Aaron has returned, and with him comes the strength of his people. Let us stand together. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Many of them had trusted humans once, only to see most leave when the dangers grew. But now one human had returned, not with soldiers but with a promise fulfilled. Perhaps that meant something greater. Aaron spoke next. I came back for Leora, but I also came back for all of you. Humanity does not forget its friends. If we fight together, we can protect this village. We can protect the future. His voice carried weight, not only because of his words, but because he had already proven them in action. The villagers listened. Slowly, the elders nodded. And so, humans and Lumeri prepared side by side. The days that followed were filled with urgency. Aaron taught the Lumeri how to use the simple weapons from his ship, while they showed him secret paths through the forests and caves. Together they built traps and defenses, combining human technology with Lumeri knowledge of the land. Leora stood at Aaron's side through it all, helping to unite their people. Some doubted, some feared, but when they looked at her and saw the ring glowing faintly on her hand, they remembered the meaning of a promise. If one human could stay true for so many years, perhaps others could too. On the night before the battle, Aaron and Leora walked to the hill where they had first made their vow. The stars stretched wide above them, twin moons bathing the world in silver. Do you regret returning? Leora asked softly. Aaron shook his head. Not for a single moment. I promised I would come back for you. But now I see. I also came back for something bigger, for the bond between our people. Maybe this was always meant to happen. Leora smiled, though her eyes were filled with worry. If we win tomorrow, our worlds will see us differently. If we fail, we won't fail, Aaron said firmly. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly. Because we're together. The battle came at dawn. The raider ships swept across the sky, engines roaring. But the villagers were ready. Hidden traps exploded beneath the enemy's landing craft. Human fighters, led by Aaron, struck from above, scattering the raider formation. On the ground, Leora guided her people with calm strength, directing them through the forest paths to strike where the raiders were weakest. Humans and Lumeri fought side by side, covering one another, protecting one another. At the height of the battle, Aaron's fighter was struck by enemy fire. Smoke filled the cockpit and alarms blared. He fought to steady the ship, his heart racing. Through the haze, he saw the village below, and Leora, standing bravely among her people. He could not fail her. With a burst of determination, Aaron pushed the failing fighter into one last dive, striking the largest raider ship and forcing it to the ground in flames. The remaining raiders, seeing their leader defeated, fled into the skies. The battle was won. When the smoke cleared, cheers echoed across the village. The Lumeri looked to the humans not as outsiders but as allies. They had seen courage with their own eyes, and they had seen the bond between Aaron and Leora shine like a beacon. The elders called a council, inviting both humans and Lumeri to sit together. For the first time, true negotiations began, not of fear, but of trust. Aaron sat quietly beside Leora as the council spoke. He was weary from battle, but his heart was full. He had returned to fulfill a promise, but now that promise had become more than personal. It was a bridge between two worlds. Weeks later, when peace had begun to take root, a ceremony was held under the twin moons. Humans and Lumeri gathered together, their voices mingling in harmony. At the center stood Aaron and Leora. She wore the ring proudly, its crystal glowing brighter than ever, as though alive with the joy of the moment. "I once laughed at your words," Leora said softly, her eyes shining as she looked at him. "But you carried them through years and distance. Today, I believe. And I once made a promise I barely understood," Aaron replied. "But it became the truth that guided me. Today I keep it." The ceremony joined them not just as two hearts, but as a symbol of what humanity could be among the stars. Not conquerors, not strangers, but partners, friends, and family. As they stood hand in hand, the crowd cheered. The moons rose higher, casting silver light over two worlds now bound together, and in that moment, humanity proved once more that its greatest strength was not in weapons or ships, but in the courage to love, to keep promises, and to build bonds that even the stars could not break.